Hello there. I have a question. What do Pippi Longstocking, Emil from Lönneberga and Carlson on the Roof have in common? Nope, it's not the haircut. It's also not the age or the character. No, it's a town in southern Sweden. It's called Vimmerby. Yeah, and this is how Vimmerby looks like. This cozy little town has only 11,000 residents, and it's a quite special cozy little town because it's the birthplace of Astrid Lindgren and also the place where she grew up. The author lived here for 18 years before she moved to Stockholm, and the exciting thing is, if you read her books, you can also notice that. In her stories, regardless if they are about Emil or the noisy village children or Bill Bergson, there are always little anecdotes that can be traced back to experiences she made in her hometown. Today, we're gonna take a little walk through the streets of Vimmerby and try to find the places that were so important for Astrid Lindgren, her life and her work. And maybe we will also meet Pippi or Carlson on the Roof. Carlson? Let's go.
Das Ziel befindet sich auf der linken Seite.
So, here we are. Welcome to Vimmerby, to my cozy little Swedish hotel room. And I was on the road for 2 days now. I went from Germany to Denmark to Sweden, and there were a lot of traffic jams, especially in Germany, of course. But I'm here now, and the long journey was worth it because I have plans. A lot of plans. We will not only do a little tour through Vimmerby, as promised in the beginning, also a lot of more videos from Sweden will follow in the next few weeks on this YouTube channel. And also I planned a huge shooting location tour of Pippi Longstocking. I will go all over Sweden for that and also to Norway. So if you don't want to miss that, you should subscribe to this YouTube channel now, because then you can come with me. Yeah. But first, however, we will start with our little tour through Vimmerby. And actually, I have to hurry a little bit because I have an appointment in the city center of Vimmerby with a person who knows the city really well. So let's go there.
Nach 400 Metern links abbiegen.
Yeah, and this person is Ingela. She was born here in Vimmerby. Her grandmother was a friend of Astrid Lindgren. They both played together as children. And today Ingela runs the Filmbyn Museum in Småland, which is all about Swedish children's films. Yeah, and the first thing I asked Ingela, of course, was, what do we need to know about Vimmerby? What kind of town is this?
Vimmerby is a very small and very old place where people have lived since the 1200th century. But it has always been very small. It's a lot of farmers and also handicraft here as well. For Astrid Lindgren, she was born here in 1907, and it has been a very important place for her. Although she left only 18 years old, but she always came home to her brother and her fathers. She has been very engaged, sort of helped the society here when they were building and developing. She was often interested in what buildings they should save and so. So she is an important person for Vimmerby, and Vimmerby has been an important place for her.
Astrid Lindgren's childhood was pretty well protected here in Vimmerby, Ingela says. She had a really nice, happy childhood. However, when she became a teenager, Astrid Lindgren was no longer that happy with herself. Actually, she didn't really want to grow up. Well, however, it's good that it happened anyway, because her successful books, of course, she wrote when she was an adult. And they contained many experiences and inspirations from her childhood.
A lot of her books is connected to Vimmerby, like Kalle Blomqvist, Emil in Lönneberga. But Pippi Longstocking is not, and also Saltkråkan and Ronja Rövardotter. It's about the forests around Vimmerby, but not Vimmerby. And also Karlsson på taket, that's Stockholm. So she has been inspired from a lot of places, not only Vimmerby. But she had her upbringing here, and of course that's important for any person. Where you were born and where you sort of were raised. And she had a very, very good parents that treated her very well, and also her sisters and her brother.
But it was not only her family that was important for Astrid Lindgren. It was also her friendships she had here in Vimmerby. One of her best friends was a girl called
Ann-Marie Ingeström that lived halfway to school. They went together to school. She was important, and she also they followed each other all their lives, and they are back here at the cemetery, both of them.
A quite moving story, right? Astrid Lindgren and Anne-Marie were friends for decades. As children, they promised each other to, quote, never lie, never leave, and never betray one another. They only quarreled once. Later, the two even worked together. Astrid as an author and Anne-Marie as a children's book editor in her publishing house. In 1987, the two old ladies celebrated their 80th birthday together and even gave speeches to each other. So, why do I tell you all of this? Well, because also Anne-Marie was an inspiration for Astrid Lindgren and her books. Anne-Marie had a nickname back then, Madicken. Right? Just like the famous character from the Astrid Lindgren stories. The real Madicken, Anne-Marie, died in 1991, 11 years before her best friend, Astrid Lindgren. Today they both are buried in their hometown on the Vimmerby cemetery. And I have to say, it's a strange feeling to stand here. I never met Astrid Lindgren. I was just a teenager when she died. However, this makes me a bit emotional, because somehow I feel like I knew her a little bit. Let's go back a few years and have a look at Astrid Lindgren's childhood. Ingela really knows every corner of Vimmerby, and turns out there's a little story behind every house.
This is a house where a friend of Astrid Lindgren lived with her family, and the family had a pharmacy in the bottom of the building, and they lived upstairs. And Astrid Lindgren's friend lived in a new room quite high on the top of the building. They wanted to try the fire equipment, and they decided that Astrid should try the fire equipment. And she was hanging out here. It's quite high, and they did wrong with the equipment, so she was stuck halfway and she fell, and she got sore on her knees, and they carried her into the pharmacy and put plasters on her knees. The father just said, "Oh, how lucky that you fell outside a pharmacy so you could get plasters on your knees." That was the only thing he said, and I think it was a very clever father that didn't get angry.
Just a few meters away from this exciting place, we will find this beautiful alley called Bad Mansbacken. Look at this. This looks just like cliché Sweden. doesn't it? Stunning beautiful. Yeah, but when Astrid Lindgren was a child, this alley wasn't beautiful at all. It was a pretty bad area here. There was even an own police officer who kept an extra watch on this living area. Well, Astrid Lindgren, when she was a child, had to walk through this creepy alley to run a few errands for her parents. And these experiences, the alley with all its crooks and gangsters, inspired Astrid Lindgren for her stories about Bill Bergson, also known as Kalle Blomqvist in the Swedish books. The little detective who solves criminal cases in the fictional town of Lillköping. By the way, one of the few Astrid Lindgren stories that I never read myself. But maybe this place looks a bit familiar to you.
This is the oldest street in Vimmerby. You see it's Kullersten. And here they made, when Emil were going to the doctor in Mariannelund, he was walking here.
Yeah, believe it or not, this is one of the few places in Vimmerby that was not just an inspiration for Astrid Lindgren. No, this place was also used in a movie scene when Emil from Lönneberga went to the doctor because he had a soup bowl on his head. Not so many scenes of the Astrid Lindgren films were filmed in Vimmerby itself. Most of them were filmed around Vimmerby or all over Sweden. But for this town scene, obviously they were searching for an old street in an old Swedish village, and they found one in Vimmerby. The Emil films were shot in the 1970s, so the scene you can see here is about 50 years old. And for that, I would say the street actually looks quite the same, doesn't it? The yellow house you can see here definitely was renovated. It looked a bit dirty in the past. And was also different. Obviously, there used to be some kind of a street on the left side. Emil and his father and his mother came from that direction when they came from the doctor. Today, there is a huge yellow fence, so you can't walk through that street anymore. Here's the scene from another perspective. You can see Emil's father coming out of the doctor's office. And he obviously came out of this house we can see here on the left side. And if we take a really close look, we can still see this house you can see in this scene, the red house in the background. It's this one over here. There is a huge tree right in front of it, so we can't see that much. But also this house is still here. Let's walk a few meters up the hill. Just around the corner, we will find another important place for Astrid Lindgren. It's the place where she, for the very first time, worked as an author.
Here you can see, it's been a door. You can see here that they have changed it. So here was the door to the paper of the newspaper office. So here she worked when she was 16 years old. The manager, Reinhold Blomberg, had noticed that she was good at writing. So when she needed a job, when she was 16, he offered a job for her because he knew that she was good at writing. And he was also a friend of Astrid's father.
Yeah, but the big question, of course, is when she was working here, when she was writing here, was it already noticeable that Astrid Lindgren one day would become a great author?
They find articles that she has written because you can see the style, but sometimes it's not signed, but you can tell because it's a little bit humor, and she is very. Yeah, she writes like you want to read it because it's nice writing, really.
Just a few meters down the road, we will find the next important house. Just as yellow as the newspaper house, but this house played a completely different role back then.
So this is where the shop, it used to be a delikatessaffär. It used to be a shop where you could buy nice food. It was very unusual that a small town like Vimmerby had this shop with a lot of different food. So she has been told that this is the shop that she thought about when she was writing about the candy store in Pippi Longstocking.
And that brings us back to the place where we started our tour today, the Vimmerby Market Square. And here we will find a very special monument.
Here is the statue of Astrid Lindgren, and it was made of Marie-Louise Ekman in Stockholm and her students. And we like it, and you can also visit and sit down all year around. It's warm here because you have electrical warming, so you can sit here and talk to Astrid forever.
But there is this one thing that actually isn't that accurate about the statue, because it shows Astrid Lindgren in front of a typewriter.
When she was writing her books, she did it in bed in the morning, and then she typed it on typed.
So, now we've seen a lot of places in the Vimmerby city center. Now it's time to show you the last and also the most important place. It's the birthplace of Astrid Lindgren, where she was born and also where she grew up. And this place is right behind this hedge. And this is it. Astrid Lindgren's famous birthplace, where she was not only born but also spent her childhood. Today, this house is still privately owned by Astrid Lindgren's family. However, visitors are allowed to look at it from the outside. From time to time, there are also guided tours. There is a museum around the house with a small park and an exhibition that tells the story of Astrid Lindgren's life. Yeah, and this life is also reflected in her books. She herself once said, quote, "We spent a blissful, noisy village life at Ness." That's how the farm is called. Not much different from the children in the Noisy Village books. According to stories, Astrid Lindgren was playing in the straw in the barn here. In the yard, she played with carpenter dolls and climbed around trees such as this one here, a huge elm. Exactly this tree, which you can see here, also later inspired Astrid Lindgren for the lemonade tree in Pippi Longstocking. She and her friends back then used to call it the old tree, and because it's hollow inside, they played in it too. This tree is now more than 200 years old. It has outlived Astrid Lindgren. Perhaps it will also outlive us at some point. Elms can live for 400 years. But one thing is clear. During this time, this famous tree will always remind us of the beautiful stories that were created here on Astrid Lindgren's little farm. So, that was my little tour through Vimmerby. I hope you liked it. I did. This was actually a quite special tour for me because I grew up with Astrid Lindgren. I read all the books when I was a child. Yeah, and to see all those places that inspired Astrid Lindgren back in the day, yeah, it was actually a quite special and also a quite emotional tour. Yeah. However, I think now it's time to close the books. And the next thing we're gonna do is a filming location tour. As promised, we're gonna do a filming location tour of Pippi Longstocking, and the funny thing about this is we won't find the shooting locations in Astrid Lindgren's hometown. They are not in Vimmerby, they are basically all over Sweden, and the first place we're gonna visit is an island that is called Gotland, where most of the scenes have been filmed, and we have to go there with a ferry. What kind of sound is that? I hope it's not dangerous. And we have to go there with a ferry for 3 hours. That's a really long ferry ride. However, I think that's the next thing we're gonna do. Let's go.
Abbiegen auf Zielsättningsgatan.
Hello. Yeah, right.
Oh, sorry, English.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's good.
To lane 10.
10?
Yeah, go to the right.
Okay. Here we are. Ja. Oh, hello again. That was part number 1 of my huge Sweden road trip. If you don't want to miss part number 2 and all the other parts, you should subscribe to this channel now and ring the bell so you won't miss any upcoming video. In 2 weeks, there will be the next episode. If you liked this video, then please leave a thumbs up, and you can also become a Patreon. Then you will get all the exclusive information, for example, all the addresses of the places I showed you today, the hotel names, stuff like that. If you want to do this road trip yourself, you will get all of that if you become a Patreon. The links are in the description below. But that's it for today. Have a safe journey and see you next time in 2 weeks. Bye bye.